If you watched last week's video, you saw how I prepare and get ready to make a miniature structure. Keep watching today and you'll see how to take those flat panels of plywood and turn them into something that's starting to look like a building. Alright, so now it's time to start doing the construction. Since we talked last, I went ahead and everything's primed and labeled, and then I started painting. The first step on this one is to actually put together the front door. And since I want all my trim to be black on this one and the door painted brown, I pre-painted it so it's all ready to go. And the parts. So this is the exterior trim, so now we are going to start gluing this together. I've kind of dry fit it and kind of looked at it, and everything seems to fit right. So the first piece I want to glue on is this. Now for most of the construction I'll be using Elmer's Carpenter's wood glue, and I found this little one. This is really handy for putting out just small amounts. Put this on, put the glue on it, and then make sure it's nice and level. Everything is flat, and clamp it. Actually clamp it inside a little bit. So now that's all clamped and lined up. Now the side pieces can get put on. And I'll run again a strip of glue just down here, not too much because this stuff does not dry clear, so you want to be really careful that it doesn't ooze out too much. So line everything up, make sure it's all square, and I like to use these cheap clothespins to clamp with. They work really nicely and they hold everything in place. Wipe it up. And I've got my wet wipes here. Now I have glue all over my fingers. Okay. I'm going to use the wet wipe to kind of wipe up some glue. And let me reach around and get some more clamps. 2, 3. So I'll do this piece. This is the other long piece. And I'm going to put the plastic on the inside of the door, not the outside, because it will get less wear and tear that way. Alright, so line it up. Oops. Making sure, now double check. This is fiddly time. This is time to make sure you have everything lined up. Should have brought a Q-tip over here and I didn't do that. That would make this easier. And clamp. Now one more piece. So 2 more clamps. I'll put this bottom piece on. Line it up. And I might have to do a little touch up on my paint. That's fine. I do the major part of the painting ahead on this because the door's got an inset that I wanted a different color. And there's one more piece to put on the outside, but I want to wait until all this glue is set, and then I'll come back and we'll put this piece on right there below the window. So when this dries, we'll come back and we'll put that last piece on the front, and then later we'll do the inside of the door. And this glue takes, how long does it have to be clamped? Always read your directions. Let's see, this says clamp it for 30 minutes for firmest bond to dry overnight. So in about a half hour I will come back and we'll put this last piece on. Alright. I need to get out one of these pieces of plastic for the window. And I measured a while ago. Whoops, I didn't get scissors. And I need to cut this 3.5 by 2.5. So let's get everything set up here. Let's see if I can get this put around where both of us, both the camera can see it and I can see it. Okay, I'm cutting off a 2.5 inch wide strip off this plastic. Now, let's cut this piece to 3.5 inches and then test it against our window, against our door. All right, that there, there. Yep, that's going to work. Now, on this structure, I'm not going to hinge my door. I'm just going to glue it in place. If I was going to hinge it, I would actually have put some ribbon. I like to do it with ribbon and hide it in the door. But for this structure, I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to glue it in place. So let's get just a drop of glue. I think this should hold it. We just need to hold it in place long enough to put the wood strips over it, which are that's what's really going to hold it in place. Okay. That's just a temporary hold there. Now be really careful that you don't get glue on your plastic window, because that will ruin the window plastic. It's really, really hard to get that off again. Trust me, I've done it. Okay. Strip of glue, right down again. Not too much. See, there's less on this end. Another long piece. Whoa, too much glue. And that's okay, as long as you catch it right away, it's easier to get it off. Just wipe the extra glue off. And clamp. It's just a wooden clip. I think these go a little wider open. Okay. 2 more pieces. And I've got glue on my fingers and I'm getting glue on my wood. Make sure it's going to fit. There we go. That's almost tight enough to hold without glue. But it wouldn't stay very long that way. Let's see. First, let's get that glue off. Let's see if I can get this piece in there too. Right there. I'm going to put the glue actually right here I don't want to take any chances on getting glue on my plastic window. Now, clamp it. And now this will need to dry overnight. And next, we need to, well, first I need to put the plastic back in the envelope because that is so easy to misplace. And our next step after this will be to assemble the front door area. So we'll do that next. All right. So I finished the door. The door's all dry now, and I'm not going to do the touch-up on the paint until I get everything else finished and I do the rest of the touch-up. But the door's all ready to go in. So the next step on this kit is to construct the front wall. And one of the points I was going to make today was that you always, always, always do a dry fit. And there's a good reason for that, and this kit really illustrates it. Because in the schematic, this particular piece is labeled as the first floor. And this piece is the second floor. Well, I was dry fitting this morning, which we'll get into here in a second, and how to do that. And I couldn't figure out what these extra holes were for. Then I realized this is actually the second floor, not the first floor. They had them mislabeled. So that is a really good reason to dry fit before you put glue on, because if I would have glued this and then tried to make the second floor fit, it wouldn't have worked. So that's just a point I wanted to make. Alright, so I have put a coat of brown paint on because it's easier to paint these when they're flat than once they're in place. So I went ahead and put the first coat of paint on. And by the way, I am working on aluminum foil. I normally work on freezer paper, but I had very carefully put my box of freezer paper away empty last time. So that's why we're working on foil this week. After I get to the store, I will probably change next time. So we take our pieces, and I know I have the two side pieces and the two pieces that go in the doorways, and then the top to the doorway, so that goes above the door. So let's first dry fit, and dry fit means you put some tape here. Well, so first we'll go pull some tape up. There's some tape here laying on my surface. And dry fitting simply means that we tape these together first and make sure everything will fit. And I don't worry too much about having glue. Some people say don't paint where you're going to glue. I've never really had any trouble with that, so I don't worry too much about it. If it was a dollhouse that a child was going to play with, well, I wouldn't be using this wood, and I wouldn't do this then. Then I would do it differently. Right, so now this side is all in place, and that's what this will fit, something like that. Should put my camera up taller, I guess. And remember, it's not glued or anything, this is just taped so I can see that it will all fit. So now we'll do the other side of the door. See if the top will fit. And you really need like 5 hands to do this, it seems like. You do get really good at balancing things. Let me turn the camera off and on. So now it's all dry fit together. It's taped, and I can see that my door will fit. So my next step is to now take this all down, get it glued, and I'm going to use some canned goods, some big cans of food or something to hold it so everything stays straight. When I get it glued, I'll check back in with you. So now everything is glued and being held up, supported with some cans, so that it will stand straight. And we'll let this set up for a while, and then I'll fit the top floor in, and I'll show you how that all looks. So now the front lower floor unit is all done. I have, it's kind of hard to see on camera, but I've got the front wall glued to the bottom floor and the second floor. So now we're going to start putting the sidewalls on. And I'm doing one thing a little differently than I normally would do, because I am going to tape wire this structure, and normally I would run the tape wire up from the first floor to the second floor using the stairwell. There is no stairwell in this building. So I have prepared both of these sidewalls by measuring in 4 inches and running a single strip of tape wire up each one. That will tie into the tape wire on the bottom and top floors, allowing us to have electricity both places. So let me get set up to get this all glued, to get the first wall glued on, and then I dry fit this in. I did have to trim this little tab here because it didn't quite line up, and that happens. That's why you always dry fit everything. So now I'm going to run a bead of glue. I've drawn a line showing where my glue needs to go on my wall, and I know I need a strip there. So let's run a nice, and you're going to need a pretty healthy strip of glue. We'll be covering this glue up when we put the wall trim on and stuff. It's okay to be a little messy on this part, because this is really the only thing that holds these together. And the glue, yeah, it's messy, and it's going to show because it does dry yellow. It doesn't dry clear. But you need enough on there that you'll actually make a connection. Right. So now we simply insert the tabs into the slots, which is what gives this style of house its name, tab and slot. Putting the tabs into the slots, making sure everything lines up, and now this can sit. And now this will need to sit until it's dry. I'm actually going to put some glue in where those meet. Kind of get some glue on that slot area and let it kind of run down. If it runs down, I'm working on top of freezer paper. I did get to town and get freezer paper. That will peel off of your building. So don't worry if the glue seeps down and you end up gluing your building to your freezer paper. It peels off really easily. But you've got these houses, there's so few contact points, you need to glue it securely. So when this dries, I'll flip it over and do the same thing the other direction, and I'll be back then after that. Alright, as you can see, I have finished gluing on the front of the structure to the sides. So basically our base structure is all complete. The other thing I went ahead and did is I caulked using our regular silicone caulk that we use in a lot of miniature foods. I'm using it for what it's designed for here. I caulked along the seams. I have a few more to do. The structure's all ready to go now, so tune in next week and we will start doing the exterior of the building. I'll talk to you later. Bye.